So I'm almost done with the book. I just finished part 3 and now there's only one part left. I'm really anticipating the ending. I'm not sure how it's going to end, but at the end of part 3, McMurphy told the prostitute Candy to come back to the ward at 2 a.m. a couple Saturdays from then. And this just bodes trouble. That's all I can think, is that this is just going to be a problem. I've been meaning to talk about the rhetoric used in the book for a while, but I haven't been able to think of a good way to bring this up, because even though Kesey uses a lot of figurative language to describe people and places in the book, I didn't want to make a video solely focused on this because they're random, they aren't totally significant even if they do paint a beautiful picture. Not until this section was I able to find a good way to tie this into my discussions. In this part, McMurphy convinces a few of the acutes to come out on a fishing trip and kind of experience the outdoors, something that they don't really get to do since they're confined to the ward all the time. Through this outing, we get to see the dichotomy that Kesey paints of inside versus outside, or inside the Combine versus on the edge of it or outside of it. Kesey uses a great deal of figurative language to describe the contrast between these two atmospheres and the people in both of them. Whenever he talks about the ward, he paints a very dull picture. Everything's the same, it's gray, it's boring. At the beginning of the novel, the ward is described as being like a cartoon world where figures are flat and outlined in black. And it's also constantly filled with the hum of black machinery, humming hate and death and other hospital secrets. The first is a simile describing the dull daily life of the ward. Everybody's flat, they're boring, there's nothing exciting going on. The second is a personification of the machines to describe a hateful, secretive atmosphere. This atmosphere isn't only present in the ward, it's present wherever the Combine exists. This hateful, same dull atmosphere is present wherever the Combine exists. When Chief leaves the ward with the other patients to go on the fishing trip, he looks around and sees the signs of what the Combine has accomplished since he was last through this country. Everything around him has been shaped by the Combine in some way. Kesey describes this conformity, this sameness, in a passage with some of the most eloquent rhetorical language that I have ever read. It's got so many different kinds of figurative language, and it really paints an incredible symbolic picture. It says, "A train stopping at a station and laying a string of full-grown men in mirrored suits and machined hats, laying them like a hatch of identical insects, half-life things, coming ft-ft-ft out of the last car, then hooting its electric whistle and moving on down the spoiled land to deposit another hatch." Wow. In this passage, the train represents the Combine, laying people like insects, crawling, ugly things that live their lives exactly the way the Combine wants them to. Their houses, their children, their clothing, their lives, they're all identical. They've all been molded by this great machine. By calling them half-life things, he is saying that these people aren't truly living, they're just existing within society. The descriptions of this world, the world of suburbia and conformity, and the world that the Combine has created, is sharply contrasted with the world outside of this conformity, the natural world, or the world of people living their lives on the edge. While they're on the boat, Kesey uses beautiful imagery to describe the setting. He says, "Suddenly, all around Chief, the smooth slopes of chrome were shattered by diving birds and churning minnows, and the sleek silver-blue torpedo backs of the salmon slicing through it all." Oh gosh, it's beautiful. This wild and beautiful phenomenon is so different from the sameness of life in society, and this imagery is just so striking that I can picture it perfectly in my mind, and I can almost feel the ocean breeze. Though the majority of people in society have been turned into these interchangeable robots, there are a few who haven't. They've kept their individuality. There are two people who have totally not decided to live by society's rules. There's Candy Starr. She's a prostitute that McMurphy brings on the fishing trip, and McMurphy, obviously. We meet Candy for the first time in this part, and being a prostitute, she doesn't live the normal, boring life of a housewife that was expected of women at the time. However, despite her controversial work, she's actually a very loving and endearing character, and many of the patients, especially the stuttering Billy Bibbit, become enthralled with her. Kesey describes her as being a girl, a female who wasn't dressed white from head to foot like she'd been dipped in frost, and how she made her money didn't make any difference. This description sets her apart from the cold nurses that normally are around the patients, and shows that she hasn't been hammered down by the Combine. She's an individual. Another character that remains true to his identity is McMurphy, like I said before. Throughout the novel, McMurphy has been described as being different from the other patients. He may be loud and crude, but unlike the abusive Combine that makes patients scared and in worse condition, McMurphy is actually able to help the patients with their illnesses. This fact becomes especially evident when he breaks through to Chief and gets him to actually talk to him, which is a huge point in the novel. When Chief believes McMurphy's asleep, he gets this desire to reach out and touch his shoulder, just because he wants to have contact with someone who's just who he is. Chief believes McMurphy is bigger and stronger than himself for that very reason. However, Chief knows the sad truth about what happens to those who are big. The Combine eventually gets to them and will wear them down. He saw this happen to his father. His father had been head of a beautiful land, and he'd been a lot like McMurphy, strong, bold, lively, broad-shouldered. Then came the Combine in the form of the government. Chief recounts a memory from his childhood where 3 government officials came to his tribe and surveyed the land, trying to figure out how to develop this beautiful, natural area. Again, Chief compares these Combine people to machines, saying that he can see the seams where they've been put together. His father was against this development, but in the end, the Combine wore his father down, and Chief believes that the same thing's going to happen to McMurphy. His father was against this development, but in the end, the Combine wore his father down because he was big, and Chief believes that this is going to happen to McMurphy as well, because the Combine always wins. He tells McMurphy this, leading me to believe that this is some very significant and very depressing foreshadowing. Writing through Chief, Kesey implements some beautiful and devastating language to describe the ins and outs of the Combine and the world that's been created inside of it and around it. Though Chief doesn't always actually see what's happening in a situation, what he perceives to be seeing is a lot of the time way more significant. His descriptions allow us to see his damaged but fascinating view of the world, allowing us to see the contrast between society and those places outside of its structure. Through this language, he even persuades us to have more favorable opinions of those people that would naturally be unfavorable to us in normal society, like the prostitutes, the ruffians, and the insane. However, I guess there's a reason why we usually see these people as bad. Because the Combine in our society has fixed us so that we can no longer see the beauty in these people or in a world that doesn't belong to this structure. Thank you for watching.